The Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. Week 12, aka the Thanksgiving Slate, DraftKings Picks, and preview, plus projections, lineups. We're going to talk through our favorite builds of the week. Glad to see you all again. I've been under the weather the past little bit. I tried it out on Sunday and kept forgetting what I was trying to say with brain fog. So I decided to give myself an extra day of rest, and now we're back. We got a ton of content coming out on Thanksgiving, including a live show at 9:15 a.m. Eastern on Mayo Media Network on Thanksgiving. Me, Custon Studio, Jeff on the line, where we will be doing the mini version of the Spread Pick Show for the Thanksgiving slate only. If you want the Pilgrim Parlay from Cuss, that's where you're going to have to get it. But since you're here, smash the like and sub to the channel, and use runthesims.com, especially for these Thanksgiving slates and Black Friday. It's really going to show its teeth on things like this, so please go check that out at runthesims.com. Since the first game is in Detroit, Tambo is not on the show this week. I decided to get Kid Rock from Detroit to come be on the show. Hello.
Hello. How you doing, buddy? I gotta be honest. The Kid Rock comp, I get it. I mean, obviously, I get it. That is my number one celebrity lookalike. I don't love it, but you know, it is what it is. I guess we gotta embrace it on Thanksgiving Day. We'll take it. It's fine.
Man, it's that dirty mustache.
The mustache is working right now. I think of all the things I've tried with my facial hair, I think it is the best. The no facial hair doesn't work. I just straight up look like a 16-year-old girl with no facial hair. And the beard issue is I don't really know how to tame it. I don't really know how to have a nice manly tapered beard. So the mustache is funny, at least. I mean, at the very least, it is funny.
Good news for you, the people out there. There are 3 rake-free PME listeners leagues this week. One for the Thanksgiving slate, a showdown one for Black Friday, and then the main slate for week number 12. I know people are traveling, but you're best to reserve those spots now because one of them has 1,500, one of them has 1,000, one of them has 2,000. So they're not giant contests, but enough to get yourself some action down on each of the slates. So those are down in the description right now. I feel like we've done this show, I think we skipped it last year. But before that, I think we had done it back to the time that I was still at Fantasy, doing the Thanksgiving only picks.
I think that is right. I don't have a recollection of doing this last year, but when I do think back to all the Thanksgiving DFS slates that I've done, I feel like I've probably done the most with you. It's sort of funny, you don't give a shit about Thanksgiving because you're Canadian. So like this is a nice week for you to kind of churn out the content, be ahead of the game. And I just always say, you know what, I would be on my computer doing lineups, like setting all this stuff up anyways. So I end up doing this is probably the most content I'm going to do in a week all year, basically, which is totally fine by me because I don't mind Thanksgiving morning, waking up and being on my computer for 4 hours and then enjoying the day. That's fine by me.
Yeah, this is always the biggest advantage that I felt that I had throughout the course of the entire calendar, any sport, versus the rest of people doing content was Thanksgiving because everyone just wants the day off. And of course you do, but I have to work on my Thanksgiving. It falls on a Monday. And, you can't skip Mondays, although I skipped this Monday because I was sick. But either way, golf was still going on at that time too. You can't skip golf on Mondays. But everyone's just taking Thursday off. Most people take Friday off. Most people take the weekend off. And I can just churn out content. Hopefully, people enjoy it. And hopefully, it's good enough to win some people Monday. So I want to talk about tips before we get into anything. Small slate, only 3 games. Do you have... I remember us talking about for ages. And I remember a Theo Riddick year where you just kind of load up on the early game and try to get your sleeper dude from that game, the cheap guy. And if they hit, you can kind of reverse engineer your lineup with late swap all the way through onto the chalkier plays because you've already hit the guy that you've needed to hit.
I mean, I would say general tips for this specific slate is I see a couple spots that, they could easily get to at a team level, they could 3 touchdowns, no problem. The first one being Green Bay in that game, despite the fact that Jordan Love did just come off with like Aaron Jones, questionable. AJ Dillon actually is listed with an injury. And then even Emmanuel Wilson, the third running back for the Packers, is also listed with an injury. I think people are just going to be squeamish there. People are for sure going to be squeamish on Christian Watson, who did finally score last week, but like looks like maybe the fourth best wide receiver on the Packers. And then the Seattle passing game. I mean, I'm going to guess of the 6 quarterbacks and wide receivers who are playing on Thanksgiving, I think the Geno double stack combos are going to be probably the 5th most owned, like Love probably the 6th, but like Howell, Dak, Purdy, and Goff and his guys are just going to be so far ahead in ownership combinations. And I mean, like, I don't really see any reason why the Seattle dudes can't. Like, why can Geno and Metcalf and Lockett not combine for 80 points or 85 points? Like, I totally think they can.
I mean, we don't know right now if Geno's going to play or not.
I'm guessing that since he came back in like that, like I think that's just a good rule of thumb. Now, I mean, they could do, I don't know. And would you do an MRI for a tricep? Probably not. They might do some testing or whatever. And I mean, if we get word on Thursday morning that Drew Lock is starting this game, I think you'd be looking at it's hard to imagine hardly any of the field clicking on Metcalf, Lockett, or JSN. And I mean, do you remember, I want to say this was the 2019 Thanksgiving slate, the David Blau, Kenny Galladay. I mean, you ended up in that slate, you ended up needing not Blau, but you needed Galladay. I think Galladay had like 4 for 102 and 1 or something, and he was in all the optimal combinations. So that would definitely be some like Metcalf at like 8% on this slate. That would end up being like my gold star play, I think.
Well, we'll see. I think if the information becomes a little bit better on Geno and a little bit clearer, then I could see DK being. I guess there are a lot of pretty good receivers on the slate to begin with. Like, if you have to have your choice between Amon-Ra, you have to leave one out between Amon-Ra, Ayuk, CD, and him. It's probably going to be Metcalf.
Yes. Yeah. I think that is true. I mean, the way that it would look for me right now, like I just opened up the slate and started clicking guys through. I guess the first thing to note is that it's not really that hard to play all the studs. I mean, like you can get multiple studs in a lineup. Like you can go Dak, McCaffrey, and CD and still kind of be drawing pretty live because there are a lot of cheap tight ends like Logan Thomas and Luke Musgrave. I actually think I would imagine that's kind of how most teams will be with 2 of the higher projected players. I don't think there's going to be a lot of attacking of the mid-range. Like McCaffrey and one of Lamb, Ayuk, and St. Brown is going to be on a ton of rosters, I bet. Okay, well, let's build this out. I have DraftKings pulled up right now. So McCaffrey, we're going to throw him in. And who do you think is going to be the highest owned receiver, Lamb or St. Brown? St. Brown, I think, will be.
All right, so if we're going to use St. Brown, do we have to use Goff as our quarterback then, or can we figure that out elsewhere?
No, I think you can play him. I mean, I think you can have him be the only guy at that game because like Goff's ultimate ceiling, I would actually say is probably the 4th highest of this slate behind Howell, Prescott, and Purdy. I think all of those guys have better like 90th percentile outcomes than him.
Not Jordan Love?
Yeah, Love did have his best game of the year last week. He just does. Love, I would say Love and Goff are like very similar in terms of the range. Like Goff probably slightly better because the Lions offense is just slightly better than the Packers, but Love probably gets more passing attempts, honestly, in this spot.
Well, we can kind of parse it out. I'm on Run the Sims right now, and we have everything loaded in. So let's just run the Sims and see what it tells us for this week in terms of like optimals and try to build out a lineup that way. So we have McCaffrey.
Run the Sims is going to love Goff because the field is going to gravitate towards Howell, but Goff has a better projection. So those are the types of spots that the Sims always really go for.
Well, it's basically giving us in terms of optimals. We have McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, and then Dak as 1, 2, 3. With then Charbonnet because it doesn't look like Wilson's going to play. So let's throw those in and see how that works. So let's go with Dak, no St. Brown, and go with CeeDee Lamb instead, and then chuck in Charbonnet. That's a pretty good price. I mean, Is he going to be the highest owned guy on the slate?
Oh, yeah. 100. I mean, I don't really see any way. Like, I'm trying to see if there would be any value wide receiver that would end up getting more owned. I don't really. I mean, the only thing you could see would be if Lockett gets ruled out early, because Lockett didn't practice at all last week and did not play his usual load of snaps in this most recent game. If Lockett didn't play, JSN could maybe rival him, but could be the only thing I see.
Not Bobo?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I would not play very much Jake Bobo, but the field might. I mean, he is $3,000, but like, I would. Didn't Jake Bobo run like a 5.1 40 or something? I don't know. Not really my type of guy, but the people do seem to love him.
So you have to run a 4.3 40 in order to be good and make your DraftKings lineup?
I mean, I guess it just like at this point, you'd probably just play any 3K wide receiver in a Thanksgiving slate who's going to be out there a ton. But I would prefer JSN at 4,100 by a lot.
I know that the Sims love Charbonnet. I don't know if I want to play him. He doesn't look very good.
Oh, I think he was really good in college.
That's great. You know what? I would wager, Davis, that most of the players in the NFL were really good in college.
Noah Brown wasn't. Noah Brown didn't have a 100-yard game at Ohio State, which is like one of the funniest things ever, and then had back-to-back ones for the Texans. I think Charbonnet is really good, and I think the thing that would make me feel most comfortable about jamming him is that even in scripts where the Seahawks are just getting, throttled by the 49ers, I think you feel pretty good about him going, 5 for 18 at the absolute worst as a receiver, and he definitely would get any goal line work. Like DJ Dallas would not be getting any goal line stuff there.
I just think that if there's a place to get different on this one, it's going to be at running back. And if everyone's going to use McCaffrey and everyone's going to use Charbonnet, not using one of those guys seems to make the most sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, Gibbs to me is the best play of the slate. I think Gibbs is probably the guy. Like when I go into Run the Sims to go do all my stuff, for like the multi-entry stuff, I will probably upgrade Justin, whatever Justin has him projected for. I will probably give him like 2 more points than whatever Justin has him for, because I just think this is actually, I don't have to do projections anymore, but when I used to, this is like a very hard spot to account for, where you can kind of see the roles changing in real time. But when you're looking at a 4-week rolling average or the average of the entire season, it still points towards a more even split. And David Montgomery did get a short yardage touchdown last week, but so did Jahmyr Gibbs. And I think Jahmyr Gibbs being used as like a legit goal line back is just not fully captured in the projections yet.
I don't know if it's so much that he's a legit full goal line back. It's just now he's getting goal line touches.
Sure. Yeah. But his projections to begin the year were giving him 0 goal line work, like all his touchdown equity coming from 20 yards out.
Well, do you think that Gibbs will be more owned than Montgomery?
Yes. Yeah. I do think Gibbs will be more, because he'll project for, I don't know, 2 or 3 more points than Montgomery, and they're only $500 apart in salary. So I think almost for sure.
So like if we're and this is the first game too, so should we just use Montgomery instead? Could you use both of them and hope that's how Detroit scores?
Yes, you definitely. I actually think
there we go.
We're sitting there, we're looking at our lineups as Washington and Dallas gets right in. You're like, it was so obvious. I mean, because actually Detroit's backfield, both this year and last year, last year they were the number 1 backfield in terms of expected points for running backs. I don't have it pulled up for me right now, but I would guess the Lions are, I would actually bet 100% they are top 5 in expected points for running backs. Would not surprise me if they were number 1 again. Like, so much of their offense is concentrated around the running backs in the red zone specifically, but they also, even Montgomery gets targets. Like, they just throw, that's such a Goff thing, is to throw to the running backs.
So let's run the Sims again. Let's go to a manual adjustment here. We'll say that the rushing rate isn't 50%. We'll say it's 60% for the Lions, but their rushing touchdown rate is going to be 85%. That's where they're going to score their touchdowns. Most of the time is going to be on the ground. For this game in particular, just to mix it up a bit. And then we'll run the sims on that and see what it tells us.
I mean, I probably wouldn't bump the team rushing rate to that level because that never happens. But the rushing TD rate, I think that's actually, I like that idea in the sims, is to just shade the touchdowns away from Laporta and Jameson Williams and St. Brown.
Yeah, that now gives, it still puts Montgomery and Gibbs because of the split, number 2 and 3 in terms of optimal rate. Still behind McCaffrey.
Well, yeah, I mean, McCaffrey is like, obviously he's going to be, it's actually interesting to see how owned he ends up being relative to St. Brown and Lamb, because he does fill a running back slot and the value options are a little bit, there are actually like quite a few value options at running back, which normally we do not get on these Thanksgiving slates.
No, but when you take a look at it, like all the guys that you do want to play, I mean, besides Charbonnet, who would you say is the other discount running back?
Brian Robinson, 5,900. He projects super strong. Gibson didn't get in any practices last week. They did an estimated practice report on Monday, and they listed him as questionable. But if Gibson doesn't end up playing, that's super interesting. Who ends up being more owned between Robinson and Charbonnet? Because Robinson, like, he's their leading receiver back-to-back weeks. It's like completely insane how involved he is as a receiver now.
Well, let's see what we got cooking up for them in the Washington game. If we go to inputs, we like probably
even with Gibson in, Robinson's still projecting like all right.
Yeah, but all of his passing game work might go away.
Yeah,
that's a distinct possibility. That is the one threat of Antonio Gibson. We don't have Gibson in right now, which gives us Brian Robinson 62% of the rushes. He sucks running the ball, by the way. Or maybe it's just the team. Yeah. They suck running the ball, but no one runs on
their offensive line isn't very good, and they just huck the ball around. But like, it's like, who cares? Like, you don't need a lot of like 4-yard rushes. Like playing a running back in fantasy, you need catches and you need touchdowns, and he is providing both of those things.
So right now, Run the Sims has Chris Rodriguez as 5.5% of the receiving share. I don't agree with that. I'll put that at 3, and just bump up Brian Robinson in this case to 14%, and just go with it that way. And then bump his touchdown receiving to 16%, and then Rodriguez down to 3%. See where that gets us. There's a little slight adjustment in this game. Now, obviously, if Gibson plays, then all bets are off with this. I probably, would you still play Robinson if Gibson was active?
Yes. Yeah, I'd play him some. I mean, I'm probably not going to consciously fade any of the 6 starting running backs here. Honestly, it's what's so weird is that if Gibson is out, we're going to be in a spot where the highest team total running back of the slate, Tony Pollard, is actually not going to end up getting super jammed because I mean he did score a touchdown last week, but he's not really working that much in the pass game. Only 12 rushes last week, and the Cowboys do not give him the ball in the second half when they're up a bazillion points, really. I mean, only 12 rushes last week. They've been handing the ball to Rico Dowdle and Deuce Vaughn and whatever when they get up all these points. So, Pollard ended up being, I believe, about 25% in tournaments last week, again, with a really strong projection. But, I do think best case, he ends up being the 3rd most owned running back, but probably more like the 4th, particularly if Gibson is out.
Has anyone won money playing Tony Pollard this year?
No. Week 1. Yeah. Week 1, but that's it, probably.
Yeah.
I believe he's the number 1 running back in fantasy points under expectation this season.
Well, that would mean he's a gigantic loser when it comes to that then.
Yeah, but the thing is that over time, efficiency tends to regress more towards the norm than volume does. Like if the guy is getting 18 touches a week, he's like, it's the Joe Mixon thing, right? Where Joe Mixon is a giant loser 14 weeks out of the season, and then 2 weeks of Pollard is now in that bucket. He is Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, that type of guy where you can't count on the efficiency at all, but 2 or 3 times a year, they will regress towards league average efficiency. I mean, Pollard was actually league average efficiency last week, and when he get 19 or whatever. But if he gets 2 touchdowns, he's like for sure going to be needed in the optimal lineups.
Well, if anyone gets 2 touchdowns on the slate, you're going to need them in the optimal lineups.
But Pollard is more likely than the average 30% owned player. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they went out of their way to get him a touchdown last week. Like, they actively tried to make that happen. They made it happen, but there are just other guys who are stealing touchdowns. And when they get near the goal line and even in the red zone, their passing offense is far more efficient of scoring than running. And I think they finally realized that.
Oh, well, they definitely did finally realize that. And that is why, that's why Pollard is having this miserable season. Like if you look at his efficiency metrics compared to someone like Travis Etienne, they're really actually not that dissimilar in terms of like success rate, yards per carry, yada, yada. But Etienne has scored a bunch of touchdowns. Tony Pollard is second behind only Christian McCaffrey in rushing attempts inside the 20. He leads the entire NFL in rushing attempts inside the 10. He's second in rushing attempts inside the 5, but his success rate is brutal. I would probably bet on the success rate coming back more towards league average. Like, I think Pollard is just like a league average running back. Now, he's not as good as he was, but I don't think he is like, I don't know. I can't come up with a terrible running back. I don't think this dude is Ronnie Rivers, basically, is what I would say.
Ronnie Rivers. Guy just taking strays.
Yeah, Ronnie Rivers coming back off the IR this week. Total stray there. But yeah, I mean, I don't, and honestly, I say all this, I don't even know if I have the stones to like really play a lot of Pollard because he's right next to Jahmyr Gibbs, who I just think is way better.
Well, let's talk about this less from a perspective of I'm going to play every running back, so I can't be wrong with whatever I say, and put you on the hot seat and say, hey, I'm not going to play. I'm playing 3 max. I'm playing in the PME DraftKings Listeners League. That's all I'm playing in. I'm building 3 lineups. Do you think that Pollard makes any of those for you? Because he's not for me.
Probably not. I would say right now, 7:37 a.m. Central Time. I'm going no on Tony Pollard. I would say it's honestly, given the context of the slate that we have now, where I'm expecting Gibson not to play, I think Robinson is better for less. But I would rank them in terms of preference: McCaffrey, Charbonnet, Robinson, Gibbs, Pollard. So that would mean he's not making the 3 max cut.
Okay. Let's go back to that lineup that we were building for a moment. So it has Dak, Gibbs, and Montgomery in it right now. I mean, this is one that I'm going with because I think this is a lot of fun. Who are like the jabronis that we can fill out? You mentioned tight ends. Where do you want to go with that? Because if we do take a look at the optimal tight ends, it's going to be probably Jake Ferguson. Yeah, it is Jake Ferguson at 3,900. Then it's Logan Thomas. And then Kittle, who's all the money. And then we're looking at like Musgrave, Laporta, and Noah Fant.
Well, do you want me to give you a real shitter?
Is it Kraft?
Yeah, because Musgrave is listed as a non-participant on the estimated practice report on Monday with an abdominal injury. I believe that's a new injury, by the way. It's not the one that he missed time with before when he had the foot injury. He's also been listed with a concussion this year. But Tucker Kraft, $2,600 or $2,500 on DraftKings.com. And I do think if you're playing Montgomery and Gibbs, you are probably going to want a Packers pass catcher of some variety.
Well, the issue becomes with Kraft that I think he's only a play if Musgrave plays. Because if Musgrave doesn't play, he's going to be the most popular punt play on the slate, which you don't want. Like, you want to have the unique punt play.
I mean, that's kind of one of those things. That's like very 2019 DFS, where it's just like, don't play the most owned guy. One of the, actually, of all the things I've learned this year in DFS from like using Sims, listening to people who are way smarter than me and have won way more money than me playing DFS, one of the things I've realized is like that the idea of like, you can't play this guy because he's X% owned is like, it's like mostly just a guess. Like when I say, I think the field is not going to play as much Pollard as they should. Like, what I'm really doing is just like astrology, and the Sims are actually going to have a better idea of how owned Tucker Kraft at 2,500 projecting for 8.3 points should be. Now, if I go to runthesims.com on Thursday morning and Luke Musgrave is out and they have Tucker Kraft as the number one most minus EV player on the Sim Runner Pro page, then I probably won't play him as much, right? But I mean, I don't have any way of knowing that. You know what I'm saying?
I suppose. I think it's still a pretty good rule of thumb that
Sure, I don't disagree.
Chalk running back, fine. I mean,
Sure.
we all got taken by Singletary 3 weeks ago, and then no one played him the next week, and it was exactly the same spot at the same discount price, then no one wanted him because he failed the week before. But the logic was right, and we should have just all played him the second week as well, and no one did. And the people that did ended up winning all the money. But in this spot, with Kraft, I just find like your $3,000 wide receiver, your $2,500 tight end, who like kind of sucks, you're still taking a chance that they're going to do anything because receiving roles don't translate 1v1 like running backs do in terms of touches or even market share of targets. It just doesn't work that way. And if everyone's going to be using the same punt play, like, yeah, great, it hit. Now I'm still competing with 25% of the field on all of the other plays.
Well, I mean, sometimes that is like the winning strategy though, which is that you don't fight the chalk at 3. Like Trey McBride, I think is a great example from last week. I flipped the cards over week 11. Trey McBride is 50% owned in like the single entry stuff that I like to play. And I kind of guessed that's what was going to happen. And I was totally fine with that. I was totally fine with, because I thought McBride was the best play by like leaps and bounds. And actually, I'm not sure that Tucker Kraft would be the best play by leaps and bounds because like Jordan Love is not that good. Tucker Kraft is probably not that good. Even this role that he would quote unquote be taking over for Luke Musgrave has not even been a good role. It has been nothing but a theoretically good role. Musgrave has 2 games over 8 DraftKings points the entire season. So like this specific play is like super fragile. And even if Musgrave doesn't play, has like a load of chance to fail. So I think actually I've talked myself into you are being right. Like Tucker Kraft being the most owned tight end of the slate is like probably bad any way you slice it. But I do like the idea of playing him now if Musgrave is in, or like, we get that Jay Glazer report, like Musgrave's going to try and gut it out, but he's not 100% or whatever.
Yeah, just Musgrave being active seems like what you want for Kraft, because then he is the 2% guy who saves you all the money. Then you can kind of jam everyone else. So let's just use Jake Ferguson for the moment because he rates out really well. And we're using Dak anyway. If you're going to build a lineup like this with Dak, CeeDee, and Jake Ferguson, do you just keep piling on other, like, do we put in Gallup or Cooks or any of those guys? Tolbert?
Tolbert, I actually think I think that is insanely sharp because he is now like officially kind of rotating in as a starter. He played 14 first half snaps last week to Gallup's 18, although Gallup had his highest PFF graded game of the year. I don't know how much the Cowboys care about shit like that, but Tolbert I think is probably pretty. I mean, he's got 5 targets in each of their last 3 games. I think that's really sharp. I like that idea.
Okay, so now we have the jabroni. Like that's what I'm talking about when I'm constructing my 3-game slate lineups. And you did a show. I forget when it was. And I had some guy in a Seattle playoff game, and you just laughed me out of the building. And he ended up scoring 2 touchdowns, and that was like the difference. It wasn't Doug Baldwin. It wasn't Tyler Lockett. It was the other guy that they had.
Probably J.D. McKissick or something.
It was against Atlanta, I think.
Wow.
God, I wish
that's going back in the annals of time. I don't have access to that. I got to memorize Tony Pollard red zone stats.
Yeah, I mean that's 0 for whatever. That's 1 now. 1 for infinity.
Yeah, literally like 3 for 97 Tony Pollard red zone stats.
Okay, so we have a receiver, a flex, and a defense left. What defense do you want to roll with here? Like, do we continue Cowboys onslaught or do we go cheap?
So I think the Sims will disagree on this. The Sims will tell you this is a high ROI thing, which is to put the defense in with the team onslaught. I think it just does not seem right to me. I would rather go. I actually think we could go with the Lions here if we're not going to play any Packers, and we just play this as like Gibbs and Montgomery just get like 47 rushes combined. I don't hate that idea, or the 49ers.
Well, we want Gibbs and Montgomery to be scoring, right?
Yes.
And yes, the defense could facilitate that and setting them up with short fields or whatever it might be. But we also want our defense scoring, and like we have to get lucky with the defense that they score a touchdown on one of these slates. So
that's why I wouldn't do the Cowboys thing, because I think if you have three guys from a team, and the defense scores, you're eliminating a touchdown that your offense can get.
But I feel like that's the same thing in this lineup where we have two running backs from the Lions. That Lions D kind of is the same thing.
So we don't have McCaffrey on this team. So let's do the 49ers defense, hope for a defensive touchdown, and that's a touchdown that McCaffrey can't score.
The holidays are quickly approaching, and you need to get gifts for people, but you're like me, you don't know what to get people. Some people are hard to buy for, so you need to give the gift of Omaha Steaks. OmahaSteaks.com is having a 50% off site-wide sale right now, and using code MAYO at checkout will get you an additional $30 off. Omaha Steaks is a gift from the heart, and a gift that will be remembered with every unforgettable bite. Visit omahasteaks.com and take advantage of the 50% off site-wide sale. Plus, use promo code MAYO at checkout to get an extra $30 off your order. Minimum order may be required. So the two spots we have left to fill are wide receiver and tight end. Wide receiver and flex. And we spent down at tight end for Jake Ferguson. And we used Tolbert instead of Cooks as a receiver to save money. And then $3,600 for 49ers D because we didn't have any 49ers. So I think the best we can do here, like even if we pay down at receiver, the best we can hope to get back up to for flex would probably be Pollard, which who cares at this point? We definitely won't have enough anywhere to get back up to McCaffrey or Amon-Ra. So should we throw in a commander into this lineup?
Yeah, I think we should play either a Commander or a Packers wide receiver in the context of this lineup.
All right, so if you had to pick a Packers receiver, why is it Jaden Reed?
Well, his coach just came out on Tuesday morning and said like some variation of he's got that dog in him quote. I think Reed is probably pretty strong. I think he will also probably be the most owned of them. I imagine myself on Thursday, I'm sitting there in my mother-in-law's kitchen. I'm cooking, I'm working on stuff. I'm checking the scores of the game. And I end up with like Christian Watson on a bunch of these lineups. And I see Jaden Reed scoring the touchdowns. And I'm like, you're too smart by half for doing the Christian Watson thing because he absolutely stinks. Yeah,
I'd rather play. I just threw in Romeo Doubs into this lineup. Only because
that's fine. That's fine too.
When they get into the red zone, they just throw him jump balls if nothing else is working.
Oh, you know what though? I wanted to play Debo in flex, and we are $100 short of doing that.
How much is Debo?
5,900.
I mean, we don't have to play Kid Romeo here. We could figure out.
We could do if you want to do the too smart by half play. It's definitely Jahan Dotson in this lineup. Like Dotson will be less owned than McLaurin and Samuel, probably. I'm guessing.
Oh. Did he do anything last week?
I think he had one catch. No, 4 targets last week. Oh, he scored a touchdown last week. We're back in.
Didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I literally, you could have polled me. I mean, I did. I looked at all the stats and stuff for these games on Monday morning, and I didn't even realize that Dotson scored a touchdown.
Yeah, do we need Debo in this lineup? Because I was circling Debo as well as just the 49er no one's going to play. But, like, he really doesn't do much.
Debo doesn't do much?
No, he doesn't. Like, what's his best game?
That's literally the thing with Debo is that he doesn't do much until he does, right? Like Debo does. I mean, the 1 year he was unbelievable for fantasy. It was because he had it was actually like the greatest rushing efficiency season of all time. I believe he scored a rushing touchdown once every 8 carries or something like that. Yeah, I mean, Debo doesn't do anything until he does. But if this is the game where he scores 2 64-yard touchdowns or whatever, I think Debo is probably the best bet of a guy priced below $6,000 to score 30 or more fantasy points. So that would be Kittle, Brian Robinson, Debo, AJ Dillon, Terry McLaurin, Charbonnet, Laporta, and Dobbs. I like his odds the best of a 30-plus fantasy point game of anyone there. Maybe that's wrong. I'm shooting from the hip here.
Yeah, I think you're trying to shoot the moon here. Like, we're playing hearts, and I just don't think that's going to work. It might work, but there's a pretty distinct line. Weeks 2 and 3, when I just went and looked at the game log, Debo did have pretty good weeks, but I think Ayuk was banged up for those games. But essentially, since Christian McCaffrey arrived in San Francisco, Debo's been a terrible fantasy player.
Yeah, I mean, because those 14-yard touchdowns he used to get are now all to McCaffrey. He did score one, I think 3 weeks ago. He scored a rushing, or maybe 2 weeks ago, he scored a rushing touchdown. And Ayuk is clearly the one who has the better mind meld, I guess you'd say, with Mr. Purdy. But I mean, again, we're looking in the context of this slate. I guess this lineup is very non-chalky, so we can probably just play whoever we want. I just kind of always drift. I'm just a Debo guy. I'm a Debo slappy. Do
you think we'll see Aaron Jones? Because I don't.
I do not. No, I think we will not see Aaron Jones, which I meant to mention this earlier when we were talking about who might be the shitter. So not only is Aaron Jones questionable, but the other guy, Emmanuel Wilson, who's been the third running back, also got injured in that game. He injured his shoulder, which means their backfield is going to be down to
AJ Dillon and Patrick, whatever his name is.
Patrick Taylor, who is technically on the practice squad right now. He's actually not even, when you go click on DraftKings.com and you go to the Green Bay running backs, he's not even in there. He'll have to get added because they'll have to sign him off the practice squad to the active roster because I think he's out of call-ups. But Patrick Taylor would be the guy who I would imagine getting, 8 rushes, 2 catches or whatever, alongside AJ Dillon.
Yeah, so we can throw McLaurin in at $5,400 here. And that as our flex, I mean, we would probably put McLaurin. It depends on, just put your guy who plays in the latest game into your flex, as always, if people don't remember that. But Dillon, Charbonnet, Laporta, and Romeo Doubs are your 4 guys who are left as a flex. Dillon sucks, man. Like, I can't play that guy.
I agree. I don't think you're wrong. I would play Charbonnet here. Again, this lineup is I don't know. I'm going to guess this lineup is 15 points off of whatever the most optimal lineup is. Like, if you ran 150, this wouldn't even be in the top 150. So we can play whoever we want here, really.
Well, I can kind of space out for you who is in the optimal right now. It's because we don't have Brian Robinson or Christian McCaffrey, or Christian Watson weirdly appears in the optimal. So maybe the Sims are broken. Who knows? And it's double tight end with Logan Thomas and Jake Ferguson and 49ers.
Double tight end is going to be very popular. They're always very popular in 3-game slates because it's a way to
save money.
It's a way to save money. Yeah.
But, okay, well, maybe we'll close with that, or maybe we try to build a different type of lineup here. Do you like where this leaves us, like McLaurin and Romeo Doubs?
I mean, it's honestly, probably not. Like, this lineup is probably too thin. Like, I would not play this in a 3-max contest. This is a Millie Maker style lineup, I think. I think if you do the Gibbs Montgomery thing, you can just play stone chalk. You can play the highest projected play around them. Like, you can click Gibbs Montgomery and then just click optimize around them. Because I think, how many lineups are those guys going to be together on? Like, maybe 5%, maybe. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe I need to spend more time running these lineups, but I'm going to guess it's pretty unique.
And we'll enter that one into the big $3 and see how it works. If we're going to try to build another one, would you want to build out? Because we did kind of just do like a Dak onslaught. Who would be the other quarterback you want to go to? Is it Purdy or Howell?
For me, probably Howell, just because the insane volume is going to be there. Like, he'll have 40. How many pass attempts is this dude going to have? 40. I mean, his last 5 weeks, 45, 44, 45, 52, 42. Like, the volume from the Washington passing game is I've never really seen anything like this.
So I think I know the perfect player to stack Sam Howell with.
Who?
Dallas D.
Oh, yes. Oh, this is your finest hour. I mean, unbelievably true. Like, if you would have played the Giants D versus Howell last week. How many sacks did he eat last week? Like 5?
I mean, Washington's D had 9 sacks, but the Giants D had 6 turnovers.
Yes. I mean, he just, I like Sam Howell, whatever. I'm kind of Sam Howell agnostic. I could see him being a good quarterback. I could see like he's whatever, league average, maybe a little bit better, maybe a little bit worse, but the dude loves to take sacks.
So what are we doing with the Washington pass catchers? Let's just look at projections.
You definitely got to do. I think you just do McLaurin and Logan Thomas in this combination.
McLaurin and Logan Thomas. That's it.
Yeah, and then you use one Dallas guy, I think.
Wow, you don't want to do any Dotson.
I mean, look, the onslaught is an underused strategy. Like most teams that do Howell will probably do it this way with 2 instead of 3. I also think you could do Brian Robinson with him if Gibson doesn't play.
Yeah, that we'll have to wait on the Gibson news for. So okay, let's just do McLaurin. We'll do McLaurin and Logan Thomas. Do we want to have another Dallas player? Or do we just say Cowboys D?
No, I think we play CD. I think we play CD in this one. CD or Pollard.
All right. So now that we're doing this, do we just try to jam McCaffrey and Gibbs?
Let's see if we can do it. So McCaffrey and Gibbs leaves us with
3450.
Yeah. So we got to play. Who will be the chalk wide receiver du jour? It might be Dontavian Wicks might be the guy that people play. He's got 140 yards and 9 targets the last 2 weeks and just like looks way better than Christian Watson. They also let him throw a pass, which is pretty funny.
Okay.
He's in the concussion protocol though.
That's
so
probably not good. Like we could just throw Samuel into this and then try to flex another. Maybe we can't use like if we don't use Gibbs and we use, let's say, Charbonnet. We're now to $4,200 a player, which is way more manageable.
So we have Charbonnet, we have a triple stack, 4,300, 4,800. It doesn't really. I mean, it leaves us kind of in Christian Watson would be who I would play here, I think.
You wouldn't play Jackson Smith and Jigba or Jaden Reed? Like, I'd rather play Jaden Reed than Christian Watson.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I would click Watson, but I don't have. Well, I always find myself never really being on Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then the slate comes, and then I'm there, and then I'm like, I might as well click a little bit of Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's just one of those guys I can't help myself with.
I mean, we don't have any Lions in these lineups.
Yeah, it seems not great. Yeah, we should find a way to get Gibbs. Maybe we do.
Then we don't use CD. We take CD out.
So let's do Cooks. Let's do Cooks instead. And let's get Curtis Samuel out of there.
What's that?
Let's get Curtis Samuel out of there. Let's do Gibbs. So Howell, McCaffrey, Gibbs, McLaurin, Cooks, Logan Thomas, Cowboys leaves us with 11,100 for 2 slots. We can play Romeo Doubs, and we can play Lockett, Kittle, Brian Robinson, Deebo Samuel in the flex, whichever one of those.
So we can go to Kid Romeo here, and then 6,100. What if we use Reed instead of Dobbs?
Reed instead of Dobbs.
6,900.
So then we can play Pollard, we can play Metcalf, we can play that's it really. I don't think we want to do the double Detroit running back thing again.
No. Would you rather play Pollard or DK? I mean, you were kind of very pro DK.
Yeah, I think this lineup is good. I think this lineup is good for DK. I don't know. I just like him. He's kind of in the same bucket as Deebo to me. I just kind of always end up playing him, even though, I mean, he did have a 14 target game 2 weeks ago.
I'm trying to see what was his best game of the year was last week.
Best game of the year was last week, 94 yards and touchdown against the Rams.
He's broken
because he scored.
Why are people coming to the defense of Geno Smith so much? Like, he's been dog shit this year.
I think people like him.
Personally, I like him. That's
fine.
I
think that's why. Yeah.
But like, he has not been. It's not that he hasn't been good. That's exactly what he's been. He's been good. That's it.
Yeah, he's been good.
Don't want good. Want great.
Well, I mean, I do think, again, just like sitting here, I do think it is, I do think it's kind of interesting that Geno is like probably going to be the 6th most owned quarterback. I don't, him or Love.
All right, well, let's do it then. Let's do Geno. That'll be the last one that we do. And Geno might not even play, but probably
Geno
will.
might not even play.
So Geno.
Shame they didn't leave. If they would have left Drew Lock at 4,000, that would have been interesting.
Would you play? Do you want to play Lockett? Who's running all the tight end routes for them? Because random Seattle tight end could be the key to all of this.
I mean, it's like as much of a split as you can possibly get. They play 3 dudes.
Do they play Parkinson, Disley, and Noah Fant?
Yeah, like they all run. I think I just looked. I think they all run between like 20% and 50% of the routes.
This game is more manageable if you, let's see, McCaffrey and Ayuk in this.
Yeah.
So do we play just say screw it? We'll play Bobo at 3,000.
I can't get with Jake Bobo. That's a personal thing for me though. The listeners should not. I am not a reliable narrator on a guy who ran a 5.140. I'll just never get there.
What does he have in terms of touchdowns? He had a rushing touchdown. That's fine.
He's got 2. No, he's got 3.
What, rushing touchdowns?
No, just 3 touchdowns. So he's got 1 rushing, 2 receiving. One of them came in the game that Metcalf didn't play.
Okay, so let's not use Bobo. He doesn't really seem to be doing anything lately. So use Jackson Smith and Jigba?
Yeah. So we've got Geno, McCaffrey, Ayuk, JSN. I think we probably use Brian Robinson instead of Charbonnet on this lineup.
We can, or we can try to find a way to get to Gibbs.
So let's just put Gibbs in there and see what we get.
Like, would you rather have, like, if we have to pay up for one more guy, would you rather pay up for Gibbs or CeeDee Lamb?
Gibbs.
I think CeeDee's too much money.
Yeah. So let's put in Jake Ferguson at tight end to get a Cowboy. Let's go. In this lineup, we should use the Lions defense, I think.
Yeah, good call. And then it leaves
we
us
have
4,200 for a flex.
Yeah.
Jaden Reed. All paths lead back to Jaden Reed every week.
Yeah. This is a good team. I think of the 3 we built, this is the best one. Geno, McCaffrey.
Well, I mean, it's
Gibbs.
the worst one because we have Geno Smith in it.
Well, sure, but that's why they're appealing. I mean, if Geno grinds out, man, if Geno goes 303, I mean, obviously, like no one goes 303 against the 49ers, and 303 is a lot of points.
You realize every time that you say this, if a guy has a ceiling game, they're going to need to be in your lineup. No shit.
Yeah, no shit. I guess that's pretty reductive. This is, and I know Geno has been dog shit. They were really bad last week, but yeah, I like this one. I think that's probably gonna end up being a big part of why the Thanksgiving slate, you spend all week being so excited for it, and then you just end up late swapping because your lineups are so bad and you didn't have the most obvious stack or whatever. I'm setting myself up to have even more Geno because I'm just gonna be late swapping when the chalk absolutely kills it.
So what if we had to put our top 3 favorite stacks? Try to verbalize that, not be like, well, I'm going to play part of all 6 of them. Just 3.
No.
You had to build 3 lineups with 3 separate quarterbacks. Which way do you think that you would go?
Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb would be number 1. I would maybe even do that on 2 of 3. Purdy and Debo would be my second most favorite. And Goff, St. Brown with 1 Packers wide receiver would be my 3rd.
So you like all of those better than you like Sam Howell?
The thing with Howell is the Dallas defense is really, really good. Like he might not be able to get away with the get down by 21 in the first quarter type thing. Like it might be, they might just, like Dallas is number 1 in every defensive efficiency metric. So like, I don't know what wins out in that spot, right? Does the great defensive efficiency, like Bryce Young, great example last week. Bryce Young was down from minute 1 and did nothing. Now, granted, I think Sam Howell is playing a lot better than Bryce Young, but the Cowboys have not really given up these garbage time come from behind stuff. Like they just keep the foot on the gas the whole way.
All right. I think that'll do it.
But that could be wrong. That could be stupid of me.
I think we've effectively talked this through. Now Jordan Love is going to end up winning people all the money.
Isn't that so true? Like, we talk about Jordan Love for like 3 seconds, and then he ends up getting 24 with Romeo Dobbs and Tucker Kraft.
Well, it'll be something really stupid too. He'll have like 13 for 26 for 175 yards, but somehow throw 3 touchdowns and rush one in.
Yep. That is Thanksgiving DFS, like in an absolute fucking nutshell. It always goes that way.
Well, when that happens, you can just go hit the bottle earlier. It's easy.
Well, there's more showdowns. Like if Jordan Love starts out the first game and he's the nuts and you don't have any of them, you can just enter the showdowns. I mean, that's what they're there for.
If you do, I don't want to say print money, but if you do want to give yourself the best advantage to win money in daily fantasy on Thanksgiving, use the Run the Sim second half showdown simulator and enter those contests. I bet you the one for Washington Dallas is going to be big.
I bet it will be. I don't have access to these contests in Missouri, isn't that so bizarre? Like I can do like almost all types of gambling, but I can't enter. Well, actually not all types. Like legalized sports betting's not even here, but I can't enter second half contests on DraftKings. It's so bizarre.
What?
I can't do it. Here, maybe the laws have changed. The last time I tried to enter one though, I couldn't do, which was for the Super Bowl. Let's see, are they posted? Showdown, yeah, they're not posted yet, but I'm pretty sure that is the case.
Is it?
Don't ask me.
It's just second half showdown. Like regular showdown is fine.
Any in-game showdown. So fourth quarter, whatever. I cannot enter in-game showdowns in Missouri.
Interesting. Let's see, afternoon, Dallas at Washington. Yeah, they don't have the second showdown. There's a $12 $600K prize pool just for a regular showdown for that Detroit or the Washington Dallas game. So I bet you the second half ones will be pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty. They are good contests. One year, or actually no, not even 1 year. Literally last year for the Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl, I drove over to Illinois to do like all the bets and everything, but then you can reserve entries. So I reserved entries for the second half in-game showdown, and I was able to play that way.
Seems like a lot of effort.
A lot of effort and I'm sure I ended up losing too. So what can you do?
Follow Davis at Davis Mattek on X. If you can follow me at the PME. Play in the listeners leagues. There's 3 of them this week. One for Thanksgiving, one for Black Friday for Showdown, then one for the main slate. They're all in the description right now. Smash the like and sub to the channel while you're here. And go use omahasteaks.com. Code Mayo. Get yourself an extra $30 off the already 50% off of everything at Omaha Steaks statewide. All right? I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.